Welcome to Tales from the Jar Side, the video series. My name is Ken Cousin, and this is the video recording of the newsletter that I wrote that went out yesterday. So the title of the newsletter was Tales from the Jar Side. Amazon rejected my video. We'll talk about that. Groovy Vampires. A Groundhog Day joke. Mockito Made Clear is doing pretty well. And spying weather balloons. The subtitle this week was, I went to a psychic and knocked on her door. She asked, who is it? So I left. Got that ready. Welcome, fellow jarheads, to Tales from the Jar Side, the Cousin IT newsletter for the week of January 29th to February 4th, 2023. This week I taught my Making New Java Features Work for You course, which is essentially a latest features in Java course. And week one of my Android development bootcamp on the O'Reilly Learning Platform, which was basically an introduction to Kotlin. Regular readers of and listeners to, and now of course video viewers of this newsletter are affectionately known as jarheads and are far more intelligent, sophisticated, and attractive than the average newsletter reader or listener or viewer. If you wish to become a jarhead, there's a subscription button here, or you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, or both. Section. Amazon hates me, apparently. Well, we'll see. At any rate, in last week's newsletter, which I have linked and embedded here, I announced my new book, Mockito Made Clear, which is now available from the Pragmatic Bookshelf. Here's the link to that book. Mockito Made Clear, Java Unit Testing with Mocks, Stubs, and Spies is part of the Pragmatic Bookshelf, which is at pragprog.com/titles, Mockito Made Clear. You can see it there if you like. To support the book, I've written a series of blog posts on the Medium. The reason I'm using Medium is the Pragmatic Programmers have a publication there. It looks like this. So here's the Pragmatic Programmers publication. Let's magnify that a bit. They have author spotlights and they talk about excerpts from various books. There's one of mine, posts recently. Craig Walls has a new Alexa book out, and so on. Okay. The posts that I have published so far, or they published for me in that publication so far, are why use Mockito at all, and then first two parts of my unboxing day, which talks about unboxing an ebook. Now, I went through those a little bit last week in the video, so I'm not going to go through them again today, but let's talk about the result of this. I currently have 4 more posts in the queue, including the one that should appear this week, Unboxing Day Part 3, which will be the final entry in that series. And I have a few more in various stages of development. I actually have another one I submitted over the weekend. All well and good, and I'm planning to make videos about them for my Mockito series, partly to illustrate the concepts and partly for those people who either don't like reading the posts or don't like reading the posts on Medium. I understand that. You'll notice, however, that 3 of them, 2 so far, 1 coming, are about the admittedly silly task of unboxing an ebook when there's no box. That illustrates a writing tip that probably works only for me. If you are struggling with writing, tell a joke. Even if the editor later makes you remove the gag, that wasn't as funny as you thought it was, you could still use all the pages surrounding it. I've done this for years. I build up a whole half a chapter based on telling a gag, long story, and then clean it up afterwards. I can't tell you how often I've done this. You've seen it in this newsletter if you're a follower or if you're a jarhead. As an early example, let me show you something that kind of really I ran with a lot, and that is Groovy Vampires. So let's talk about the section here on Groovy Vampires. This came about when I was writing my first book, Making Java Groovy, which was published in 2013, I believe. During the writing of that book, I was wandering through my local Barnes & Noble, and I noticed that while they only had a single shelf labeled computer, there were 2 or more dedicated to a category called teen paranormal romance, as you can see here. I took a picture. I therefore decided, in order to help my book sell better, to add some Groovy Vampires to the book. And you see I took an old picture of Bela Lugosi and added the Groovy emblem to him. If you can see that, I think that's pretty clear. Okay, in the book, I used the Groovy programming language to access a RESTful web service and a REST endpoint provided by the old Rotten Tomatoes site. Now, Rotten Tomatoes has since been bought by Fandango, and now you have to apply and I believe pay for access. So it doesn't work anymore, nor do I plan to renew that. At any rate, at the time I did a word search, a search on the word vampire in their movie database, downloaded the movie data return, which came back in JSON format, JavaScript object notation, saved it into a Mongo database because Mongo's native format is what they call BSON, short for binary JSON, parsed it into Groovy Pogos, and then displayed it. Now, I even served them up on my own service, which I created using another Groovy project called Ratpack. I wrote about all of this in chapter 8 of my book. You can see it's kind of dark, but there's a snippet of section 8.5.1, populating Groovy Vampires, and it's in here with some footnotes. One thing I will say about that book, I took all the jokes that I was going to say and I kept them in the footnotes. I didn't want to distract people when they were trying to get answers or trying to read something, distract them with gags, but I couldn't leave them out entirely. It's very frustrating to me now that when you write books that are ebooks, we're not allowed to use footnotes anymore. So I have to find other ways to get the gags into the book. Anyway, the last footnote here, if you could see it, says, is in reference to the Mongo database. That's not a vampire movie, of course, the Blazing Saddles movie, but the urge to save Mongo in Mongo database, Mongo the character in Blazing Saddles, is irresistible. You no doubt are familiar with the quote, Mongo only pawn in game of life, which is a brilliant line and arguably the peak of the Alex Karras oeuvre, the former football Hall of Famer who wound up going into acting. Any rate, when the physical books arrived at Barnes & Noble, because I convinced the manager there to purchase a few, then I signed them and we left them on the shelf, but then I took one of them and moved it over to the teen paranormal romance section, adding this little adding this little post-it note on top of it that says Groovy Vampires, page 220. As you might expect, the Barnes & Noble staff just moved it back, or at least I think they did. It did vanish from that section. I checked about a week later, and when I asked them, nobody had purchased a copy of the book. Oh, well. Still, I got almost half a chapter out of that gag, maybe not that much, but it was fun. And I made a presentation that I used at a couple of conferences and at some user groups. I had a lot of fun with it. And then I made this alternate cover for the Making Java Groovy book that had the subtitle, Still a Better Love Story Than Twilight. So I stand by that, but you may interpret it however you like. So as you can see, going way overboard for a silly gag is not new to me. That attitude and somewhat warped sense of humor lies behind this whole idea of unboxing the unboxable, i.e. the ebook version of Mockito Made Clear. As an aside, another book I wrote is called Kotlin Cookbook. Let me put a picture here of that. And one of the funniest gags I heard, a friend of mine looked at the cover there and they were not technical and they asked me, probably in jest, I'm not 100% sure, so is that a Kotlin and this is a cookbook on how to cook Kotlins? And of course it's not, but I thought that was funny. So what I did is I again got Barnes & Noble to order a couple of them, I signed them, and then I took one of them and put it over in the cooking section just to see what would happen. And again, it vanished without a trace. I don't know. I don't know that any of my books have ever sold as physical copies in my Barnes & Noble. But it is kind of nice to go into the bookshop and see a book with your name on it inside the bookshop, even if you really are just visiting it because it gets lonely otherwise. Okay, so now let's get back to the Amazon issue. So this week, Mockito Made Clear finally got its page at Amazon. So here's what the page looks like at Amazon.com. Mockito Made Clear Kindle edition. Because the book is only available in ebook form, then the one at Amazon is Kindle only. And what you could see from this page is that I purchased this item just last week. Now, as I pointed out in the newsletter, as you might imagine, that wasn't my idea, buying another copy, because when you get a book from the Pragmatic Bookshelf, they deliver all three binary formats to you, the PDF format, EPUB, and Mobi, even though Mobi is being phased out by Amazon. But you have all three without any DRM or anything. It's really nice, digital rights management. If you really want to add your mobile book to a Kindle reader, then in principle, you can mail it to a special email address associated with each advice, or Amazon has what they call a Send to Kindle site, which will let them upload it for you. And I did take my EPUB and do that. I used the Send to Kindle site and added it to my own personal Kindle. You could combine that with the fact that Amazon's listing the version you can see here for $14.99, which seems a little excessive, given that at Pragmatic Programmers, it's only $9.99. And I do have to remind you that as Jarheads, use the coupon code KKMockito35, and you could even take 35% off of that. But all right, so be it. I had no reason to buy the book from Amazon except for one, and it's that I wanted to make the unboxing video. So Amazon's only selling the Kindle version, so I wanted to show it inside a Kindle reader. While as I say, I did upload it to my personal Kindle, I didn't have an easy way to demonstrate that on the video. So I bought it so it would wind up in my Kindle library, and then in the book, in the online version anyway, I could go to read.amazon.com and see the books there. So this is a sacrifice I make for my art, if you will, of $14.99 plus tax. So at any rate, I then recorded a video, the unboxing video, and I played it straight. There are no jokes. I made sure not to talk about the price of the book or mention that it's also available directly from the publisher or say anything marketing related about me or my newsletter or the YouTube channel. And I kept the length down. I was under 2 minutes. All I did was show the table of contents and summarize what's in it and say that it's mine and what it's for. That's all I did. And I uploaded it and waited for it to be approved. And here was the result. And you could see that the video was rejected. And I was like, wait, what? And notice before I move off of this image that I put an unboxing video up there a couple of years ago for my Help Your Boss Help You book, and that was published. It's still there now. So I want to know, why was it rejected? And if you look at the details there, it says your video has been rejected for not complying with our community guidelines. And they had a link to those guidelines. And here's that link. And it's pretty extensive. You know, what's the Amazon community and who can participate and what's not allowed. See, here's the part that may matter. Seller order or shipping feedback or pricing or availability. As I say, I avoided that. Repetitive text, spam, or pictures created with symbols or private information. I didn't put anything in there like that. Profanity or harassment, hate speech, sexual content in my book. Yeah, right. Ads or promotional content. And, you know, I try to avoid all that. So I don't know exactly what I violated. Now, the one part at the bottom that could be it is that now they have this section called conflict of interest. It's not allowed to create, edit, or post content about your own products or services. But if that's the problem, then why did they accept my unboxing video for Help Your Boss Help You? I don't know. So at any rate, in order to do something with that video, I mean, I went and made it. I published it on the YouTube channel, and I included it here in the newsletter. You're welcome to take a look. You can go look on the YouTube channel. If I open it up here, just have to stop it from playing right away. At any rate, you see it's only 1 minute 51 seconds long, and I put an extensive discussion in the description talking about the links and everything that happened and whatever else, you know, might be relevant. You're welcome to take a look if you are interested. Okay, so in case you're wondering, no, I didn't run over Jeff Bezos' cat either or anything like that, as far as I know. This isn't something personal, at least until Bezos sees this issue of my newsletter. Yeah. That's going to happen. Of course, that would probably make sales skyrocket if he objected to it publicly. Wouldn't that be great? But all right. Now, speaking of the book and how the book is doing, if you go to, let me go back to, let's get rid of that one and this one, and go back to Mockito Made Clear and go to the Pragmatic Bookshelf. First of all, you see, yes, I have been bumped out of the featured book section because there's a new book this week, the audio book there. But I'm still in the new releases, of course. At the bottom, under that list, there's a link here called Bestsellers. So if I go to Bestsellers, you can see, let me magnify that a bit, that Mockito Made Clear is still number 5. These count breadth first, I suppose you'd say. It's a little clearer on the mobile device where you can see them one by one. Now, this hasn't changed in the past couple of days, but hey, I'll take it. I'm very happy about that. So it seems to be doing all right. And thank you very much for that. So it's not like I'm checking all the time as far as you know, but okay, I'm checking a lot. Now, speaking of videos, on Groundhog Day, there's an old gag I've been using for years, and I made a YouTube short. I'd never made one of those before. It's in my YouTube channel. And it's about Punxsutawney Phil, seer of seers, prognosticator of prognosticators, and how the fact is if the groundhog sees his shadow, that's a good thing. And you could take a look on the YouTube channel. It's, again, the YouTube short definition is that it has to be like less than a minute. So it's very, very short here. I didn't put a link up here, but I did. Oh, there's the link here. I could go to it if I want, but I'll leave it alone. Here's the code, however, for those who might be interested in the code. This is using the Kotlin, new Kotlin X datetime library, where they have a constructor for local date. So I made the local date for February 2nd and the local date for the first day of spring, March 20th this year. And the Kotlin library has a days until method to tell you how many days are between the two. And there's also a generic until method that takes the other date and a time unit. So what you find out when you execute this is that there are in fact 46 days from Groundhog Day until the first day of spring, which is in fact 6 weeks, and 4 days. So if the groundhog sees his shadow, that saves you 4 days, right? Because 6 more weeks of winter. I know it's a long way to go for that gag, but so be it. Now, I've done that demo in Groovy a few times. My blog is not all that active anymore, but I do have a post from back in 2015 when I did it in Groovy, but it predates the local date class and the code doesn't render anymore. And plus the fact that on the morning of Groundhog Day, I taught a Kotlin class. So Kotlin was on my mind. So I put in the code in Kotlin. Now in Groovy, the code would look like this. It's pretty much the same thing, except you're using the of method, which is the factory method in Java and local date for creating the date rather. And this is the only inherently Groovy part, is you're able to use a minus sign between local dates in Groovy because it uses operator overloading, and the operator's been overloaded to return the number of days in between. I could also use that until method to find out how many weeks, and again, you get the same answer. Now, as an aside, Groovy was my first love. I really miss Groovy, and I love the language, and the community is the best ever. I just wish there was more demand for it, but so be it. Now, Paul King, who's the current head of the Groovy framework, saw that and posted an alternative. He wrote his own little blog post over here on Apache Groovy's blog, and he took my picture of the groundhog, which is great. And then he has his own little snippet here. Let me magnify that a bit. And you can see what he does that I didn't do is he used something in Groovy called a category. And a time category allows you to add methods. It's like metaprogramming, but only in a limited range. It would only work in between the braces here. So what this time category does is, among other things, it adds a weeks property and a days property to integer. So you can go 6.weeks or even 6.weeks.from.now. You could do lots of interesting things. But what he did is he added 6 weeks and 4 days, and that returns a duration, as it turns out. And then days here invokes the getDays method. and then check that number of expected days was the difference. The other quirky part here is he says spring equinox in the northern hemisphere because Paul is from Australia, of course. So he has to make that distinction for us. So at any rate, I put, didn't mean to click on that. I put his and mine as well, and I added it to my GitHub repository with his attribution. I put in the link to his blog and everything. And it was cute using the time category like that. For the record, Pugsatawny Phil did in fact see his shadow this year. So, hey, saved us 4 days of winter, sort of. Next section, tweets and toots. Let's get into that. And speaking of winter, it got really, really cold here Saturday night. You could see that the temperature was at least -9 Fahrenheit. It might have been lower than that, but that's the lowest I saw when I was checking. Others in the area went to 10 below or more. It was incredible. And that's Fahrenheit. I mean, it's one thing to be 10 below Celsius, which is cold, but 10 below Fahrenheit, that's ridiculous. I'd never experienced that anywhere and anywhere I've traveled in the world. And it was at home. Go figure. So as a reminder, the average temperatures in January for my area, for Connecticut actually, were nearly 10 degrees above normal. So this was way out of whack. It's completely different. The Washington Post has an extensive article about it in case you're interested. Historic Arctic outbreak crushes records in New England. They talked about how trees exploded as water in the sap froze and expanded. There were these things called winter water spouts or Arctic sea smoke. If your weather causes people to use terms like that, you're in for a rough time. In Maine, they had frost quakes or cryoseisms. Wow. I put a link here to the Wikipedia article, which is here on cryoseism. I, again, never heard that term before, but I get it. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. They also mentioned that the weather station on the top of Mount Washington, that's the highest point in New England, recorded a new wind chill record of -109 degrees Fahrenheit, corresponding to wind gusts over 110 miles an hour. The stratosphere actually dipped all the way down and intersected Fort Washington. It's crazy. Now, for the record, it was over 50 degrees last week, and it's currently 48 here. Believe it or not, it's 48 Fahrenheit. So it was 42 yesterday when I was writing this. So this was completely out of the blue. It lasted about a day and a half, and it's gone. Weird, but oh well, I'm just glad our heating system and backup generator held up. We did lose power a few times, but we've got a generator, and it did come back. Okay, moving on. Chinese spy balloon memes. Now, I'm not going to really comment on certainly not going to comment on the politics of that situation. But one balloon shows up over on Montana, which is when it hit the news, and a portion of the population forgets that we've had spy satellites and spy planes and flyovers practically since World War II ended, from the 40s. It's not like the Pentagon didn't know about this. They knew about it early. And they even advised against people trying to shoot it down themselves. Again, you can get outraged if you want to get outraged, or not, whatever you like. But I'm going to focus on the memes. I like some of the memes that came out of it. So here was, of course, the inevitable good night moon, good night Chinese high altitude spy balloon, good night stars, good night air, good night persistent overhead reconnaissance everywhere. That was good. Another one had this picture. Good night table, good night moon, good night Chinese spy balloon. Yeah, I mean, again, kind of inevitable. This was clever. This is, when you look at it, you have to think about it a minute and realize, oh, that's the old Spider-Man cartoon theme. Spy balloon, watch out, here comes spy balloon. Yeah, on, that was really clever. And of course, this, after the balloon was shot down, was 98 Luftballons, of course. But if somebody says that, you want to roll your eyes and give them an okay boomer. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. The image did vaguely look like the moon, so this one came up, which was, that's no moon. It's a Chinese spy balloon. There is a Chinese space station in orbit right now, the Tiangong, or no, that may be wrong. The name is wrong. Shoot. Okay, wait a minute. Chinese space station. which is called the Tiangong space station, currently in orbit and fascinating. You're not getting a lot of press in the US, but it's fascinating. They have one too, and it's been very successful so far. At any rate, I threw in, as the movie Star Wars says, you'll never find a more wretched balloon of scum and villainy. We must be cautious. I definitely saw somebody tweet something about up, up, and away and my beautiful spy balloon joke, but I couldn't find that one again, even though I searched for it. And then finally, this was a great one. The only thing that can stop a bad guy with a weather balloon is a good guy with a weather balloon. Now, of course, one of the people in the comments pointed out, or a good guy in an F-14, with a missile, but okay. Inevitably, the balloon was shot down off the coast of the Carolinas. I have a link to the New York Times article. Recovery operations are underway. It's spread out over like 7 miles or something. Goodbye, little spy balloon. We hardly knew you. But don't worry, I'm sure there'll be more. Next, I don't see anything. So this little snippet, after being spotted eating sugar cane, a baby elephant tries to hide behind a light pole. You can see it there. I can magnify that a little bit, pretty good. But I like the comment. It says, what baby elephant? Right, perfect. The next one says, we don't talk about Map Club. And this was a tweet that said, welcome to Map Club. First rule of Map Club. What's that? No, sorry, this is not Fight Club. Okay, see, you are here and you actually want to be over here, right? A map, right? Wait a minute, I need... Yeah, there we go. I vaguely remember a long time ago before we had Google Maps, and that world was a much more confusing place. Now, then we go to Math, not Map Club. For those nerds who think this way, February has 28 days, and 28 is 7 times 4. Each day has 24 hours. 24 is 8 times 3. Each hour is 60 minutes, so that's 6 times 10, and 10 is 5 times 2. So if you put them all together, February has 8 factorial minutes. 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. In a non-leap year. Mathematicians, of course, will read that as 8 factorial. Computer scientists will say 8 bang. A lot of times we refer to the exclamation point as bang. English majors read it as 8. And, of course, theater kids say 8 with jazz hands, right? I don't know if I did that well. At any rate, there you go. Have a great week, everybody. And as a reminder, you can see all my upcoming training classes on the O'Reilly Learning Platform at this link and the NFJS virtual workshops here. Last week, I taught that new Java features course and the Android Development Bootcamp. This week, I've got Managing Your Manager on the O'Reilly platform in the APAC time zone, so in the evening. Latest features in Java on the No Fluff platform. And week 2 of 3 of the Android Development Bootcamp, where I hope Android Studio is a little bit more cooperative this time. Hope you have a good week. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, especially subscribe. And please let me know how you're doing, and I will see you all again next week. Thank you very much.